If you consider yourself an ambitious, high achieving individual, then I have an imagination that you wear the identity of being a grinder, capable of outworking anybody like a badge of honor. You wake up early, you stay late, and you push harder than every single person around you. You take pride in being relentless, the person who never stops searching for the next improvement, the next strategy, or the next edge. At first glance, this looks like discipline. Yet, over time, something subtle can happen. The identity of being the grinder, that guy, that gal capable of outworking anybody, can quietly become more familiar than the identity of the performer, the person who actually achieves and experiences success. You see it in business all the time. You're constantly working, you're building systems, learning new strategies, refining processes, lost in spreadsheets for total business domination and optimization. But the real breakthroughs, they never seem to quite materialize. Revenue grows slowly, decisions become overanalyzed, and there always seems to be one more thing to fix or to do before results really begin to take off. And of course, you see this pattern play out on the golf course all the time. You're always grinding on the range or in your at-home sim, experimenting with swing changes, searching for that next thought, that next feel, that next drill. There's constant effort. No one would ever second guess your effort. There's constant adjustment, fine-tuning. Yet your scores, your handicap, your results, and back to the previous example, the money in your bank, rarely reflect the amount of work you're putting in. At some point, the grind itself becomes part of your identity. And for many high-achieving, high-performing individuals, the struggle becomes more familiar than the success that you say you want. And when that identity becomes deeply ingrained, something rather interesting begins to happen. Actual breakthrough performance starts to feel foreign, further away. Think about it like this. If your business suddenly started scaling rapidly, if revenue doubled and the decisions you make now carried larger consequences, it would require a very different version of you. If your golf game suddenly became calm, consistent, almost effortless, boring, if breaking 80 felt normal instead of chaotic, it would challenge the identity you've built around constant struggle and endless improvement. Because if you're no longer the person who is always grinding to figure it out, well, who are you then? This is where the nervous system becomes incredibly important. This is where deep identity level work becomes essential. Your brain is wired to preserve familiarity, even when that familiarity is frustrating. When success begins expanding beyond the identity that you've practiced living inside for so long, your nervous system interprets that expansion as uncertainty. And uncertainty triggers subtle behaviors designed to restore equilibrium. You hesitate. you delay, you second guess, you tighten up under pressure. Your brain would rather maintain a familiar struggle than adapt to an unfamiliar level of success. Let that sink in again. Your brain would rather maintain a familiar struggle than adapt to an unfamiliar level of success. This is why next level success in business, in golf, in life, rarely comes from strategy alone. Strategy can create opportunity, but it's identity that determines whether you can consistently operate at that level. If you successfully scale your business, you don't just learn new tactics. You become someone who feels comfortable making decisions with larger stakes, consequences, and implications. If you constantly and consistently shoot lower scores, you haven't just simply improved your mechanics. You become someone whose nervous system feels safe, performing to your potential, accessing all of the mechanical and technical upgrades that you've worked on demand, under pressure, when you need them most. And of course, that's the beauty, the power, the opportunity that resides in high performance hypnotherapy. A fast, effective, rapid approach to dismantle the subconscious identities that keep your nervous system tethered to a familiar pattern of struggle so that we can unlearn all of the beliefs, feelings, and behaviors associated with that identity and build something more powerful. A version of you consistently experiencing next level success while simultaneously experiencing both psychological and emotional safety around your success. And when that happens, you don't just improve your results. You become someone who expects to operate at a higher level. So this invites in the question: if you removed the identity of being the person who's a grinder, known for outworking everyone, what version of yourself might finally have the space to emerge? And on that, we'll pause. What is up, fellow golfer? Welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach who helps my high-performing clients unlearn the fears, the beliefs, and the behaviors that hold them back from experiencing elite-level results. I'm so grateful you're here. My big obvious reminder, though it's not that obvious, is spoiler, this isn't just a golf mindset podcast. It sure as hell isn't a golf mental game podcast, because there's a difference. And I break down that difference in episode 85 of the pod. This is a personal development and peak performance podcast designed to push you to look inward, take ownership, and provide a roadmap, framework, and the tools necessary to do the deep work that is essential in allowing you to get out of your own way and become the best version of you. And today's conversation, as I spent the first 7 or 8 minutes detailing and unpacking, is around the part of you that has hijacked the steering wheel for far too long. The grinder identity, capable of outworking anybody, everybody, anytime, any place. I've put in more hours than you. I've put in more reps than you. Yet, as your hours of time and dedication have increased, your results have not. I'll tell you what has: stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, impatience, feelings and thoughts and voices of doubt, uncertainty. Why do I do this? Why do I bother? Your identity is enmeshed in a sense of psychological and emotional safety around doing the work, the hard, mechanical, technical work ruthlessly over and over and over again, because it feels safe. because it feels good to not only work hard, but it feels good to work hard and have everybody else know how hard you are working. You feel seen. You feel validated. You get praise, even envy from others. You're admired. You're even accepted in certain social circles that you desire to feel accepted to. But if you listening right now are the entrepreneur, owner, executive, or leader who just mindlessly pores over spreadsheets, gets lost in the quick dopamine hit of financial forecasting or building systems, if you are the individual who grinds it out on the range, spends hours in your at-home sim, but your revenue, your results, your scores, your handicap remain stagnant, I'm fucking speaking to you because you are grossly misled around thinking there is a direct proportional output from the input of time and effort you are putting in trying to fine tune and optimize the technical and mechanical aspect of your game or of your business. Next level success necessitates doing the work necessary to level up your identity, to be a man or woman who feels psychologically and emotionally safe, not just tasting, but fully devouring next level success. Yet it is so easy and it feels so good to continue to wear that grinder identity who can outwork everybody like a badge of honor. We've talked about the praise, the envy, the validation, the admiration, feeling seen. It also allows you to remain safe. Think about it. We'll use golf as an example. You've got an at-home sim and you can just mindlessly hit balls. Anytime you have a break between Zoom calls, if you work from home, you're hitting balls in the shed or the garage. Anytime after your kids go to bed, your significant other is tired or reading a book or whatever she or he's doing, you're there hitting balls. It feels comfortable. You get to control every aspect of your environment. So you feel in control. You create an environment that is predictable. The environment you practice within is familiar. And it's this comfortability, this familiarity, this predictability that creates a cocktail of safety. And your subconscious has one primary objective. That is to keep you safe. So when you're grinding on the range or at home and you hit a poor shot, you can quickly roll another ball out and hit another one. You can get a quick hit of dopamine. That's the best part about when you're on the range, you can have dopamine on demand. You hit a poor shot, whoop, rake another ball, boom. Okay, feel a little bit better. Same thing with spreadsheets, with building systems. It doesn't work. You can enter new numbers into Excel. You can plug a different prompt into ChatGPT. There's endless opportunity to find a quick hit of dopamine. And that feels good. It even helps you feel productive or like a sense of progress is being made. But underneath it all, what's really happening is it's allowing you to escape, to avoid discomfort that is part of the journey of leveling up. Every time, for example, you rake another ball out after a bad shot, you're numbing, you're avoiding, you're repressing that frustration and anger, that agitation that begins to come to the surface, the tension, the tightness, the heat, the rigidity. And logically, you know, there's a time and place to hit one ball after the next. More often than not, though, you hit a ball, you step back, you breathe, you reflect, you let go, you reset, you go through your routine again. Yet, that can often require slowing down, patience. Slowing down is the kryptonite to the grinder. The man or woman who outworks anybody, they don't know how to slow down. You don't know how to slow down. It's uncomfortable. It's foreign. So you find all of these sneaky, sabotaging shortcuts and patterns of behavior to avoid slowing down. You hit one ball after the next. You mindlessly tackle the low-hanging fruit on your to-do list that doesn't ever move your business forward. It feels good. You're doing for the sake of doing. You're busy for the sake of busy. But what are you actually doing to level up? To take your business to the next level, to take the identity of you as a golfer to the next level, who consistently shoots lower scores, dramatically drops his or her handicap, and plays to your potential on demand, like a habit. Look, here's the interesting part. Your badge of honor, your tenacity, your ambition, your work ethic, it is a superpower. I don't ever want to take that away from you. And what most people don't realize is 2 points. Number one, there is a season, a chapter, a time and place to grind, grind, grind. Number two, inevitably, this superpower, this ability to work endlessly, eventually it becomes a kryptonite. It holds you back. And that gap you need to close to have the breakthrough and stay at this next level of success that has eluded you for countless months, years, decades, is the ability to not only create psychological and emotional safety at that next level, it's the ability to reclaim power and control, to be able to calibrate when it's most effective to sprint, to grind, and when to recalibrate, to rest, recharge, to ensure that your pace is always sustainable, so that you're not just tasting success on occasion, you're tasting it, you're devouring it, and then you're tasting the next course, the next level. So there's always a time and place to grind, to put in the reps. And I joke, one of my mentors, I forget what episode he was featured on. He might have been at episode 100 or 102, Elliot Rowe. Phenomenal coach to some of the best, most successful poker players, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders out there. And during my mentorship and relationship building with him, he's someone I often go to for feedback, questions about, situations with clients. How would you handle this? What would you do? I'm working through this. I'm thinking through that. And we have a joke in our mentorship circle that his answer is always the same. More reps, more reps, more reps. And that makes sense. Early in a career, a passion, or the skill development process, reps are essential. You need more reps to literally build motor control, to ingrain movement patterns, to build a new neural pathway or a collection of new neural pathways for which your intricate highway system of high-level execution can eventually be built upon. We've talked about it before, the adult learning model, the conscious competence model of change. Essentially, in the beginning of learning a new skill, you don't know what you don't know. And if we're talking golf here, aspects of the swing when you were a beginner, rotating through different planes of motion, coordinating so many different muscles, limbs, joints, felt foreign, mightily uncomfortable. Yet through experience, and not just in golf, elsewhere in your life, through repetition, it feels a little bit more comfortable, a little bit fluid, a little bit more familiar. And for a period of time, repetitions, there's a proportional ratio of input to output. The more time you spend on the range, hitting balls, different shot scenarios, different business opportunities or decisions, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Skill develop is very rapid early on. Yet once you go from I've never done this before to basic familiarity, to some level of proficiency, the closer you get to mastery, and very, very, very few people get to mastery, but the closer you get, the more disproportionate that input-output ratio becomes. And continuing to grind or put all of your energy and effort into the technical and mechanical aspects will not deliver nearly the ROI it once did early in your journey. So something needs to change. Something needs to change. Because if you continue to do what you've been doing and expect different results, well, you and I both know that would be fucking insane. Yet you're hooked. You're hooked by dopamine on demand. You're hooked by familiarity, control, predictability, comfortability, safety. And as a result, if you continue, and you listening, you probably are stuck in this now, or you've experienced for many chapters of your life, but if you continue on this path, burnout emotionally, physically, psychologically, a stronger likelihood of experiencing doubt, hesitation, uncertainty, poor performance, and then more shame, frustration, anger, doubt, impatience, feelings of being out of control. And guess what happens? The more out of control you feel, the more drastically, rapidly you try to compensate elsewhere in your life. I'll tell you a quick funny example. There's this mental training program that exists. It's called 75 Hard. And I have an imagination. Most of you listening are familiar with it. It's created by Andy Frisella, former host of the MFCEO podcast. I think his podcast now is called Real AF. He's the founder and CEO of First Form, a nutrition supplement company. Point is this: 75 Hard is about doing these 5 tasks every single day, ruthlessly for 75 days in a row. And the depth and detail of the program are beyond the scope of this particular conversation. I've done it 4 times. I recommend it. It's great. You learn a lot. It's really a great program. But here's the thing. When you do it, there's these 5 things you got to do every day. And okay, I guess for context, it's worth it. So you got to drink a gallon of water every day. You got to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. You got to take a progress photo selfie every day. You have to follow a nutrition plan, no cheat meals, no alcohol. And then you have to complete 2 45-minute workouts per day, one of which has to be outside, rain or shine, tornado or ice storm. This demands control of your schedule. You have to have a sense of control to execute and complete this program. And it's so interesting. I've noticed in my life, having done this program successfully a handful of times, any season or chapter I'm feeling out of control in one area of my life, and that happens. To say the least, that happens. I notice a propensity for 75 hard thoughts to reemerge in my mind. Ooh, I should do this. I feel so out of control in my personal life or my business that I'm going to focus on something where I feel like I have a semblance of control. And that's probably what you're experiencing, mindlessly hitting balls or mindlessly feeling lost, creating spreadsheets and systems and reviewing and overanalyzing decision-making frameworks. It's just done because it feels familiar and safe because it gives you a sense of control. But again, you continue on this path: burnout, doubt, uncertainty, shame, frustration, anger, and perhaps the often overlooked, maybe most important consequence of all is just your downright inability to be present with yourself, which drastically increases the likelihood of getting off track, taking misaligned, incongruent actions. It also exponentially increases the likelihood of sabotaging the most important relationships in your life with your spouse, your kids, your business partners, your friends, your family. I remind you, if you continue to do what you've always done, how do you expect to achieve different results? Do not be insane. As I detailed candidly quite well in episode 139, all around the topic of expansion, if you continue to grind endlessly, how will you ever create space for expansion? Remember, expansion isn't only about doing more. It's about being more through doing less. Chew on that for a moment. Borrowing from one of the top performance coaches in the world, performance coach to MJ, to Kobe, Dwayne Wade, and other greats. What happens if you have a rock and you just grind it into the pavement over and over? What's left? Nothing. And that's literally what's happening to you energetically. The more you grind, you lose the opportunity to have energetic bandwidth and capacity to expand, grow, and feel safe and secure at next level success. And here's where you need to begin looking inward and having a serious, honest, vulnerable conversation with yourself. So many people remain stuck in this identity because what if you do succeed? who are you then? How do you handle the expectation, the responsibilities, the attention, the eyeballs, the pressure? Well, candidly, you probably have no energy left to do so. So you continue to get in your own way of actually experiencing that. Yet you say you want it, and that's what all your work is for. What if you learn that there's a less time-consuming approach that creates success? What if you end up realizing that you wasted so much time, energy, focusing on the wrong thing? You're stuck. You're enmeshed with this grinder identity because you're afraid to stand out. You're afraid of success. You don't know who you are if you slow down, focus on more being than doing, and actually experience everything you've ever desired and dreamed of. So your action step as we begin to wrap up this conversation is to really begin turning on your awareness for signs of physical, emotional, and psychological discomfort, and using that, reframing that as a North Star of opportunity. I want you to continue to seek discomfort with the prompts I'm going to share with you, and allow that to be a reminder that you have begun to walk a path of self-discovery and growth, not the same path of just mindlessly doing. You can apply this to your next practice session. Let's say you're going to practice for 60 minutes. You've got 10-minute timer set for a particular block or 20-minute timer. Set an alarm to go off randomly during that timer. And as soon as it goes off, stop what you're doing. Go sit down for 2 minutes. I don't care if your last shot was a great shot or a poor shot. Go sit down, pause, slow down. Skip a scheduled practice. Substitute a range session or a spreadsheet analysis, financial forecasting blocked out time block for 10 minutes of meditation, visualization. And continue to ask yourself through your daily journaling exercise, who do I need to become to achieve the goal and results I desire? If you remove the identity of being the person who outworks everyone, what version of yourself might finally have space to emerge? Again, episode 139 is a powerful deep dive conversation into the topic of expansion. This episode and that episode are beautiful pairings, a complement to one another. So I highly recommend you re-listen to that after finishing this episode. And one more point I want to specifically speak to before we wrap this up is if you are listening right now and you're on the verge of retirement, this new chapter of life. I have an imagination. There's a lot of excitement there, but equally present, if not in a greater capacity, are feelings of fear, anxiety, worry about the unknown. Your identity has been so enmeshed in all of your professional success, and you have all of these intangibles, this work ethic, this ambition, this tenacity, this ability to operate 1,000,000 miles an hour, and suddenly you're stepping in to who knows what. You don't really know. You're going to have a lot more time on your hands, a lot less responsibility. It's a tricky period to navigate without the right tools, without the right community, coaching, support system. I remind you that coaching, it's a secret weapon. It's truly an edge, a performance weapon that you can wield over your uncoached peers and competitors. And if you're serious and committed to achieving your goals, living your dream life, coaching is a necessity to help you get out of your own way, to have somebody who believes in you as much as you do, who helps you normalize and quiet the doubt, the fear, the inner critic that shows up from time to time, and holds you accountable to doing what needs to be done to be the best you. And if you're ready for that, the invitation to apply for high performance hypnotherapy and mindset coaching, it's right in the show notes below. If you feel called, even 60% ready, because you're never 100% ready, I invite you to take action. Let's set up that coaching experience and have a conversation. I thank you so much for listening to today's conversation. I hope it brought you value, a new perspective, and the courage, power, and inspiration to begin looking within, to begin detaching and creating space, separating yourself from that grinder identity. He or she is allowed to show up in different seasons and different chapters. But if he continues to be the one driving your ship, driving your car, he will run you off the road or into an iceberg. And that's not where you want to be. Thank you for listening. Share this episode. Somebody in your inner circle needs to hear this episode. The type A OCD work grinder needs this conversation. Share it with him or her. Leave a rating, 30 seconds, Apple Podcast, Spotify. I want to hear from you. I appreciate you. If you're not already, the new Instagram is alive and well at the Paul Salter. Would love to connect with you there. Have a fantastic start to your week, and I'll catch you in Thursday's conversation.